the Bohemian cuisine is really legendary. And yeah, you could have a dumpling, for instance, for lunch. So I won't be talking about the food all the time, that's for sure. I think food is not really necessary for you, as you've been eating your way for a while. So you didn't have to starve on the panorama, did you? We saw on a swampy meadow, like the one here on the right, for instance, an elk. Imagine an elk in Central Europe. So they got some elks here. Then they have the what's the name of that wild cat? It's called lynx. Yeah. And then some wolves and bears also. So this has become a retreat for rare species. And there's many national parks along the so-called Iron Curtain. That is at least one positive aspect of the Iron Curtain, which divided Europe for about actually 40 years. It was a long. Yeah, communism, an interesting topic. We should have a chat about that together. I think that is really something interesting. But first of all, would you please prepare your passports? Anything to declare? Do you have visa for Czechoslovakia?
No.
I think it's clear to you that should have been a joke. Ha 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 ha. No passport check, imagine. I remember very well the boom barriers, extremely thick ones. Then the barbed wire, the watchtowers all along the border. Those people who came too close were shot. So, and there were always queues in front of the border. Nevertheless, there were not many people going to Czechoslovakia because it was complicated. And we didn't have many trading ties to the socialist countries. That means Europeans living in the West, in the capitalist West, and we were kind of enemies for them. Yeah, and you could feel often that they were envious and unfriendly, first of all, to those speaking German, yeah, because many of them experienced the Third Reich themselves and they had to learn German, and the Nazis actually wanted to make them German. The Czechs, they would have planned to delete the Czech nation. They thought that the Czechs could be Germanized within about 100 years, so that would have been the plan of the Nazis. So there were many reasons why the part of Europe which was within the Eastern Bloc was not a very interesting place to go to on holiday. They were extremely far away for us, as if they were on another planet actually. And that's really absurd, especially in Austria, as the Austrians lived together with all those nations under the Habsburgs for hundreds of years. But many Austrians forgot about that after World War II because it was behind the Iron Curtain. And now we call them our new old neighbors. And Austria does profit from that extremely, because Austria again lies right in the center of Europe. Austria is actually now right of us, that means south of us. And Cesky Krumlov, the place which we are going to see today, is only about half an hour away from the Austrian border. And Cesky Krumlov, ladies and gentlemen, actually was one of those places which were mainly German until the end of World War II. Just a little, nevertheless, in the socialist system it was all free. So, but those are no arguments to have that back. Definitely not. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to one of the sources of an extremely famous river. It is the longest river of the Czech Republic, and a gorgeous composition was dedicated to it. It was written by Mr. Sour Cream. Smetana, yeah. Smetana is the word for sour cream also in Czech. Smetana in Russian. So Smetana, have you ever heard of the Vltava? Or it's called Moldau also. We're going to listen to that then before we start our walk in Cesky Krumlov. We're coming to the Tepla Vltava, warm Vltava. And there would be a grass-grown Vltava as well as a cold Vltava. Look at the building straight ahead with the geranium on the windows. Doesn't this remind you very much of Heidi and Switzerland? Or perhaps the hills which are like with the Sound of Music? And this is one of those houses which were built by the German settlers here in the Czech lands. They're called Sudetendeutsche. Come back to the history. So I was talking about the Celtic tribes, about the Germanic tribes, about Wenceslaus and Przemyslids, and then the Czech nation actually lost its freedom when the Habsburgs came in the year 1526 after the Battle of Mohacs against the Turks, which was won by the Habsburgs. The Czech lands passed into their hands. The last male descendant of the ruling dynasty here fell in that battle, and because of weddings which had been arranged before that, the Czech lands became part of the Habsburg Empire. I guess you all have heard of the Habsburgs and know about the grand past of Austria. Austria was one of the biggest empires of Europe until the end of World War I. And the Habsburgs, yeah, they were the rulers in Austria already, from the beginning of, from the end of the 1200s until the year 1918. And why were they so successful and why did they get so powerful? Yet their motto was, ladies and gentlemen, may others wage wars, you happy Austria get married. That was their motto. Gerant bella ali, tu Felix Austria nube in exil. And because of arranged weddings, they became extremely powerful. Once even Spain belonged to the Habsburg Empire, and the colonies in the New World also. Charles V was the emperor who could say that above his empire the sun never sets. But Spain, they lost already at the beginning of the 1700s, and then they extended to the east after the Ottomans had been what? Help me, defeated in various battles. The whole of Hungary became part of Austria, parts of Poland, later the Ukraine, most of former Yugoslavia, and also the Czech lands and Slovakia. 15 different languages were spoken in the Old Austria. And the Old Austria, of course, does fascinate me very much. But I don't want to say now that I'm a big Austrian patriot or a monarchist. I just find that interesting, first of all, as a European. Because somehow the Habsburg Empire was a predecessor of the European Union. Imagine 15 different languages were spoken in the old Austria. There was no border from Bavaria to, or better, from Switzerland in the very west to Transylvania in Romania. And there was no border from the north of nowadays Czech Republic down to the city of Dubrovnik. Have you ever done a cruise on the Mediterranean? Dubrovnik is another UNESCO site, and that was part of the Habsburg Empire until the year 1918. There was one currency all over Central Europe. It was a big market with a big potential. And imagine, many different cultures peacefully lived together. And it was for many people a matter, of course, to be bilingual. That means most of the Germans who lived here knew Czech, and the Czechs knew German. Then many different confessions and religions peacefully coexisted. Really fascinating, but unfortunately, nationalism more and more became a problem all over Europe, actually. Nationalism, which started actually with the Industrial Revolution, because then a new class came into being, and they're the workers, and they of course then organized themselves and started fighting for their rights, and also for the rights of those speaking the same language. Before that, it was not so important for the people if they were Czech or Italian or German. The people from the nobility most of the time spoke French. Then the language for in the church was Latin, and Italian was the language of music. German was still in 1700s more or less the language of the peasants, and only in the 1800s that actually became important for the people to know which ethnic group do I belong to, which society do I belong to, which class, and so on. And nationalism then became extremely radical, and it then escalated actually in the Third Reich, but it started much earlier, before Hitler gained power. And already under the Habsburgs, the Germans thought that they would be the leading class, and the other ethnic groups such as the Czechs or the Polish people or Ukrainians were more or less second class people. And when people wanted to make a career in the old Austria, they had to know German. Without that, it wouldn't have been possible. So the people who were not German and not Hungarian, the Hungarians were similar to the Germans after the compromise had been made with Hungary. All other ethnic groups were more or less second-class people, and that was the main reason why the Habsburg Empire collapsed.